Hey guys, welcome back. Welcome to Empowered RN. In today's video, we're going to be talking about code of ethics for foreign educated nurses. No, I don't know about you, but I know about me that I didn't know that this actually existed. Yes, there is a code of ethics that was created by the American Nurses Association that seeks to safeguard how nurses are recruited to the United States. So if you're an international nurse or you're interested in becoming an international nurse, this is a video that you need to watch and educate yourself about what is in the code of ethics. All right, so we're going to dive into the video right now. So I'm going to be pulling up the Code of Ethics, which was produced by the American Nurses Association and some other organization. I think the Alliance for Healthcare Association that came together and developed a Code of Ethics to help to safeguard nurses that are recruited to the United States. Yes, so this is for you. However, I don't know how many persons actually know about this because when you live outside of a country, sometimes you're not privy to the information that is available. So when I did my research and I actually found this, it's a voluntary code of ethics. I was completely, surprised that this was actually published. So it speaks volume that, the American Nurses Association does recognize foreign educated nurses, and they created something to safeguard yourselves as international nurses to make sure that you're not exploited by the hands of unscrupulous individuals and make sure that you have a safe and easy transition. Now, if you're in the process of transitioning or you're thinking about transitioning, there are a lot of key elements in this code of ethics that you need to know about that will guide you throughout your process before you enter the United States and after you reach the United States. While I went through this, I saw numerous things in there and I was like, whoa, if only I had this code of ethics when I just came here. And this is the purpose of EmpoweredRN. We're empowering you with information globally. See it here? Globally, all of the flags across the world, all the countries across the world that hopes to come to one country. We don't know opportunities and the pay is much higher. Yes, so everybody aspires, most persons aspire to be a US RN and the opportunities are great. And Empower RN seeks to create information to empower you guys to make sure you make good choices and to assist in your transition to make sure it's easy and smooth. So we're going to pull up the Code of Ethics, and the Code of Ethics is on their website, the American Nurses Association website, that you can go for yourself and you can also download. I'll be dropping it on my comment section and also in my description for you to read. And I'm encouraging you guys to read. Arm yourself with information so that when you reach decision-making areas in your life for transitioning, you can make the best possible choices. So we're going to pull up the Code of Ethics right now. And I'm going to share my screen so you can see the Code of Ethics. I think it's 3 or 5 pages long. And if you're just joining us right now, I am Empowered RN. I'm a former international nurse that transitioned from Jamaica to the United States and now working as a US RN. And I'm here to help you guys in your transition and to make sure that you're armed with information that can help you to make your transition smooth and you have access to resources. When I transitioned, it wasn't easy. There are lots of challenges, and I decided to create a page for international nurses to create a community so that we can all benefit from and that every other nurse that comes behind me won't face the challenges that I used to face while working as an international nurse. So we're going to dive in the article, the Code of Ethics, and I have down here that you can actually download the American Association of Code of Ethics for Foreign Educated Nurses. Can be found on their website. I'm actually going to see if I can bring it up some more, but it's giving me a fight, guys. I have on the glasses and I can still hardly see it. All right, so they say that the Voluntary Code of Ethics is an ethical conduct for recruitment of foreign educated nurses to the United States, right? So it reflects a mutual recognition of stakeholder interests relevant to recruitment of foreign educated nurses to the United States. It is based on acknowledgement of the rights of individuals to migrate, as an understanding that the illegitimate interests and responsibilities of nurses, source countries may conflict. It affirms that a careful balancing of those individuals and collective interests offers the best course of maximizing the benefits and reducing the potential harm to all parties. So they're talking about now the stakeholders that they are acknowledging that have interest in this code of ethics. Stakeholder groups, its subscribers are the organizations that recruits and employ foreign educated nurses, especially example, third-party recruiting firms, staffing agencies, hospitals, long-term care organizations, and healthcare systems. For the purpose of the code, recruiters refers to those who contract a foreign educated nurse in a source country in order to facilitate their migration to the United States and placement in a healthcare employment agency. Now, your employers will refer to those that are the healthcare organizations that will employ foreign educated nurses in the United States. Now, they're saying that some entities may provide both services, such as a healthcare employer may engage in direct recruitment, and we call those facilities direct hire. So hospitals that engage in direct employment, that's your direct hire. And a recruiter may employ FENs, and that's an abbreviation for foreign educated nurses, under a staffing agency model in which the agency employs and contracts nurses to healthcare organizations on a short or long-term basis. Now, this is speaking to your agencies or staffing agencies that employs you and then contracts you to the hospital. Now, when you're talking about the foreign educated nurses voluntary code of ethics, they have some standards that they spoke about, and they are saying that these are the different laws that should be applied to the foreign educated nurses, that their subscribers, such as the stakeholders, must comply with the laws of any foreign country in which they operate. So if they're in any country, agencies, hospital systems, they must comply with the foreign country in which they operate, whether through a permanent office or an agent relationship or on an occasional basis. And they must comply with the laws of the United States, including relevant employment and immigration laws when operating in the United States. Now, different laws that these companies or staffing agencies must employ and must comply with includes the FLSA. This is called the Fair Labor Standards Act, also known as the Wage Hour Law. The FLSA provides minimum wage requirements, overtime requirements, child labor regulations, and equal pay provisions for most employees. And these are some things that these are some laws that you guys need to arm yourself with. So if you get your hourly rate and your overtime, you know that this pay that you're getting is governed under the Fair Labor Standards Act within the United States. Then you have Title, I think it's the Title 8 of this or 7 of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Now, this title prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, gender, national origin in hiring employment. So you must not be discriminated based on your race, color, or religion. Age discrimination, when I read this, I found this very important. Age Discrimination in Employment Act, and this stands, there's an abbreviation for it called ADEA. The ADEA prohibits discrimination in hiring, employment, or termination against applicants and employees age 40 and over with certain limited expectations. So this is basically saying that if you're a foreign educated nurse, you're not supposed to be discriminated if you're age 40 and over. And there's a law that speaks to that if you're being recruited to the United States. So for all those who are wondering, if I'm 40 and over, can I apply? There's a law that companies must apply to call the Age Discrimination in Employment Act that prohibits discrimination in hiring, employment, or termination against applicants age 40 and over. Now, another act that these companies have to comply with and you need to arm yourself with and make sure you know is called the Equal Pay Act, the EPA. Now, for the EPA, let me move this on the screen. Or should I go down? Right. So the EPA Act applies to all employers covered by the FLSA and prohibits discrimination based on gender in the form of payment of wages for jobs of equal skill, effort, and responsibility that are performed under similar working conditions. Now, another important one that you guys need to be aware of is a Family and Medical Leave Act. This is called FMLA, and you may hear of this act when the event you become pregnant and you're given this, when you become pregnant, you're given leave, and this just certifies that you have a job and you won't be paid. No, most companies, this is how it operates. This is the act that you need to arm yourself with and know about if in the event that you have to take a leave of absence from work. Now, what is the FMLA Act? The FMLA provides up to 12 weeks of unpaid leave when an employee or covered family member has a serious health condition that requires medical care or treatment and a physician certifies that an employee's leave is necessary. Let me read that again. So this is something that will apply to you guys if you transition to the US and you have something where you are either in serious health condition or a family member if you're pregnant. The FMLA Act. The FMLA provides up to 12 weeks of unpaid leave when an employee or covered family member has serious health condition that requires medical care or treatment and a physician certifies that the employee's leave is necessary. So you're going to be given leave of absence and you're going to be given 12 weeks on the line, unpaid, no pay. All right. Americans with Disabilities Act is called the ADA. No, the Americans with Disabilities Act prohibits employment discrimination against individuals with a disability if they can perform the essential functions of the job with no special accommodations. So if you're wondering if you can apply, if you have a disability and you're an international trained nurse, companies have to adhere to the Americans with Disabilities Act, which is the ADA, which speaks that they prohibit employment discrimination against individuals with disability if you can perform the job that is essential without any special accommodations, or you can perform such functions with special accommodations which are reasonable. Now, other acts that they speak to include the National Labor Relations Act, discriminates against employees who choose to engage in any union-related activity. So if you want to join a union and you're under an agency, this prohibits employers from discriminating you against doing that. You have Occupational Safety and Health Act, which is called the OSHA, applies to employers to maintain that your environment or your place of work is safe. Then you have the Immigration and Nationality Act, which is called the INA. The INA makes it unlawful for any entity to employ an individual who is not authorized to work in the United States. Now, in terms of current labor demands and education requirements, now the Code of Ethics speaks that the companies or any agency or hospital that employ you should avoid the use of knowingly false or deliberate misleading information in all forms of communication. If they're recruiting, that they should advertise clearly and specifically indicate your occupational level for which the healthcare professional applicants are sought. So you should clearly know whether you're applying as an RN or as an LPN or as a nursing assistant. And they must include your minimum standard or qualifications required for each of those occupational levels. Now, for the employer and employment location and service duty that the ANA specified and the other agencies that came up with it specifies that the companies must explain in writing the steps involved in the migration and the licensing process and keep your foreign educated nurses applicants informed, whether by written notice, about their progress throughout the process and upon the applicant's request. They must specify in nature of employment, whether by direct hire or nursing home or an employment by a staffing agency as soon as such is known. So you're supposed to know whether you're going with a direct hire or a staffing agency, and provide a clear explanation and secure their written consent. So if you're signing up, that's where your contract comes in. They are mandated to provide that you provide a written consent, providing to make any changes in your employment. So the companies and the agencies must identify geographic location of the future work site at the time of recruitment whenever such information is known. If the recruiters or staffing agencies have not determined the future work site location, this should be fully and clearly disclosed to the FEN, which we're going to abbreviate as the Foreign Educated Nurse. The precise place of employment, such as your specific healthcare facility, the set of facilities owned by a system or work site, example, home health agency, must be specified in writing to the FENs who travel to the United States. So whichever facility that you're going, they should specify in writing whether you're going to a nursing home, whether you're going to a hospital, and have that geographic location for you before you leave your home country. All right, so in terms of contract practices, and I speak heavily of this. Now, in terms of your contract, and this is something I want you guys to listen to. Let's have a moment of silence. These agencies or companies, hospital systems, whether direct hire or agency, must provide sufficient opportunity for the foreign educated nurse to review and consider written contracts before signing is required. Example, you are supposed to be given at least 48 hours before you can sign your contract. Let me read that again. Provide sufficient opportunities for the FEN applicants to review and consider written contracts before signing. So they say that you must review it, consider before you sign, and these companies or agencies must give you at least 48 hours. So I've heard of cases where a person saying that they got a contract and they just signed, they didn't write. Any specifies that you need to review, consider, and you must have at least 48 hours before you decide to go through that contract. No, they also specify that these companies must make a reasonable effort to ensure that the contract terms are explained and understood by the FEN. The FEN is also free to consult with an attorney for contractual terms that they do not understand before signing. This is what they're saying to you, that you must understand the terms. And if you don't understand, the company should make themselves available for you so you can understand, and you're free to consult with an attorney to review your contract before you sign it. The next thing is that they must provide a copy of the signed employment contract for the FEN applicants to keep. So once you sign a contract, a copy is supposed to be sent to you and it's kept on your person. They must also provide a clear explanation of any contract changes and secure the FEN's consent whenever a modification is being done or executed, either at contract signing subsequently or except when required by law to accommodate and reflect changes in relevant regulations. Now, another one that I saw, which we need to pay attention to, is that they must secure written consent from the FEN, which is abbreviated for the Foreign Educated Nurse, applicant to sell or transfer their contract to another agency or employer, either in the language of the original contract or prior to the consummation of any transfer or sale. So they're based on my understanding, I think they're saying that you must secure in writing a written consent from the FEN applicant to either sell. So if they tell you that you're going to move to another agency, which some companies do, if they can't find places for you, or if they the agency that the area that you're trained in or your specialty is limited in that area, but there's another company that has openings, they can transfer you to that company. But you must have a written consent from you agreeing to that before you do such moves. So you must agree to it also. It's not them say, hey, we're going to move and this is where you're going to go. You have to agree with you. The code of ethics speaks to that also. Now, they're saying also that when contracts are being signed in advance of a visa issuance, this was another heavy one that I saw. So they're saying that when a contract is being signed in advance, like before you're given your visa, permit the termination of contract by the FEN if deployment is delayed for more than 3 years from contract execution. Said delay is not attributable either to the FEN failing to pass the NCLEX in a reasonable amount of time or change in regulatory environment such as visa retrogression. So if it's visa retrogression, this does not apply. And all recruitment costs should be reimbursed by the FEN to the recruiter or the employer. And we're going to read that again. So it states that if you sign a contract in advance before you get your visa, let me break it down. You are permitted, the company should permit the termination of the contract by the FEN if your deployment, that means that if you're scheduled to leave or your deployment is delayed for more than 3 years. So if you're waiting for more than 3 years, in this code of ethics, it's saying that you should be permitted to terminate the contract and be given back the monies that was invested either to the recruiter or to the FEN, to the recruiter or the employer. However, they state that said delay is not attributable either to an FEN. So if you pass the NCLEX, it's not attributable to that. Or if there's a change in regulation or in the environment, they said, example, visa retrogression. So if you're waiting for more than 3 years because of it's a change in environment, it's out of their control with regards to that. And if you fail the NCLEX, there's certain companies that have policies that state once you fail, you're on your own. You have to do it on your own. So there are policies that govern that. But if it's not related to failing the NCLEX or if it's not related to visa retrogression and your process is taking more than 3 years, you are allowed to terminate your contract. Now they're saying, which is a big one that I need everybody to understand and pay attention to, companies or the agencies charge no fees to FENs for recruitment services when payment for the same services are being already provided by the employer. Now, a lot of persons fall short to this, where agencies, companies come to you and say, hey, you have to pay such and such amount of money. This is what is required. And I'm here to tell you that once you're doing visa sponsorship jobs anywhere across the world, you're not supposed to pay any form of money because the employer is already paying for you. The employer is the one who's saying, hey, I want you to bring such and such here, we'll pay for them. So if a company comes to you and say that we need to pay, you need to pay, that's money going to that specific company and staying in their pockets, and that's where it stays, and it's not supposed to happen. But when companies are outside of the United States, and some inside the United States too, some do that, and it's not supposed to be happening. Even some of the H-2B programs that I hear about and people take their money, no. Include clear identification of financial responsibilities of all parties in contracts for the FENs, recruiters, employers, especially as it relates to the period of transition between countries. So they're basically saying that you must get a full breakdown of all the costs that you're going to incur. Since you're not paying out of pocket, you should get a breakdown. I think my agency did that. They give you a breakdown of every single thing that you're going to be paying and the costs you're going to be incurred over the time period before you leave your country and once you're in your country, all right? And this is also not limited to, it also includes transportation, specific provisions upon arrival, whether you're going to be staying at a hotel, who pays for that? Transportation to and from before you get your vehicle, who pays for that? So all of those should be specified. Now, it also states that these companies should establish an internal administrative process to facilitate review of disputes regarding the alleged breach of contracts, either by the party such as an employee complaint policy, explicit employee notice procedure. So they should have an administrative process if there's a breach of contract. If persons decide to leave, hey, these are the steps that we have to take if you're going to leave the contract. Now, it also states that they must rely upon a good faith and reasonableness to guide recruiters and employers' pursuit of breach fees. Now, breach fees is what you call when individuals or the FENs enter the contract and decide to leave before your contract ends. That means you breach your contract and you will incur the breach fee because you're supposed to pay that back. But they're saying that the company should use reasonable faith and reasonableness to guide this process, and they should make sure that they are appropriate. In general, breach fees should not be pursued against FENs where the recruiter or employer can confirm with certainty that the contract termination was in good faith. So if the contract was terminated in good faith, they're saying that FEN should not be pursued by the recruiter or the employer if you left your contract in good faith. All right, so further down in the article, in the I think it's 4 pages long. It speaks also to immigration practices, that your travel documents, passport, green card certification, permits, visas, and other official documents should not be withheld by the FEN. There are some cases where I've heard of persons said they wanted to leave a company and their travel documents were confiscated. That is a no-no, and that is also illegal. Other practices that they talk about include that the labor practices, stating that they must provide compensation for work performed by the FENs based on characteristics related to performance, such as their experience, meaning that they should pay by based on your performance and your experience, both in the US and in your source country, rather than the country in which they were trained. They also spoke to practical support for daily living, that they should make reasonable efforts to ensure that the basic needs of the FENs are safe, clean housing. You must have access to safe, clean housing, healthcare, and transportation when public services are not available, and that they must be available during your initial transition period as part of a negotiated employment contract. So housing, transportation should be made sure available to you between your transition period and also after you transition. All right, so they spoke about professional support, mean that you should get provision of clinical orientation once you have transition, and provide sufficient training in cultural and linguistic appropriateness. The other part speaks to best practices, with the example with the recruiters and employers to work with source countries to make sure that they once they take nurses, that they put back some amount of resources in the country, whether through supporting the universities or the healthcare systems. No, I was really impressed when I saw that this article was done, and it is 4 pages long, and you can download it, as I said before. Just go on the American Association of Nurses website. You can even type this in on the Google search bar, any search bar that you use, American Association of Nurses Code of Ethics for Foreign Educated Nurses. Read it. I already went through it already and gave you guys the information that speaks to how you should be recruited so that you can arm yourself. Previous videos that we have done, you saw I spoke with Kay Mendoza and the issues that some nurses actually face. Now, if we had access to this and people could read and see this, you could arm yourself with this and prevent unethical recruitment. Make sure that you're recruited ethically in good faith and that you're not harmed or exploited. And I'm happy that the American Association of Nurses put together a code of ethics to safeguard foreign educated nurses, because they do contribute to healthcare systems. They bring their experience with them, and they contribute also to the economy or the country that they're going in. So this is only for persons that are transitioning to the United States. If you're watching this and you're transitioning to Canada, or you're watching from Canada or the UK, some of other countries that nurses normally transition to, or the Australia or Dubai, do they have a code of ethics that seeks to protect how nurses are transitioned to the countries to safeguard them and to prevent exploitation of nurses? If so, you can drop in the comment section below and tell us if they do have code of ethics for nurses, especially international nurses across the world. And if you're watching this, what do you think about this code of ethics? Did you know that there was actually a code of ethics for internationally educated nurses or foreign educated nurses for the US? What do you think about this? Do you think having this helps to safeguard the nurses? And it speaks volume with regards to the American Association of Nurses, right? So if you think so, drop in the comment section. Did you think if you had known this, this would have helped your process to be much smoother or better? And this would have allowed your process to be one that you can say, yes, it was good. However, guys, I want you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Continue watching, supporting, and liking the content that I am producing. It's all about advocacy, and it's all about helping nurses that are across the world globally on a global scale. As you can see, below, we have a background where we are speaking about EmpoweredRN, and this represents all the flags, the countries that we literally have worked with. There are so many persons that have reached out to me on a global scale. I started recently to document the countries that I have been working with, and I think I left out quite a number of them. Each week, I continue to clear my emails, clear specifically my DMs across social media. If you're watching me on YouTube, I'm also on TikTok, I'm also on Instagram, and each week I clear my inbox with messages from nurses across the world asking about the process to the United States, and just asking about the do's and don'ts, how to move on, how to select an agency, or whether to go with direct hire. A lot of the questions I've been getting recently is centered around visa retrogression. We know that there's a pause at the moment, and I'm here to let you guys know that it will become worse before it becomes better. Not to scare you, but just to state that eventually the need is going to be so much that the gate will have to be opened back. And I think 2025 is the year that they have decided to restart it, and it's gonna open back. Each year, visa retrogression happen. I faced it for 2 years. Some persons experience it for 2 to 3 years. And it's a program that started, I think, based on my research in the 1960s, and it has been going on. And I can tell you, it is nowhere near stopping. However, if you're in your home country, continue to sharpen your skills, your clinical skills, continue to work on, saving. A lot of people forget to tell persons, save as much as possible in your transition before you start working here, because you're going to need it. Thank you again for all the persons that press that like button, and all the persons that continue to subscribe to the content. And we're helping nurses on a global scale and making sure that each one that comes behind me can make their transition better and much easier. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in another video. Thank you so much, guys.